You've been hurt. They lied. They attacked your name. They tried to drag you into the mud. But what if the most devastating move was no move at all? What if silence isn't weakness, but a weapon? What if you could destroy anyone without saying a word? Machiavelli never shouted. He never chased fairness. He played the long game. And in this video, you're going to learn how to do the same, not with rage, not with revenge, but with something far more terrifying: indifference. He who strikes first reveals his fear. He who stands still reveals his power. Comment below. Have you ever let silence destroy someone louder than words ever could? They stabbed you, not with a knife, but with words, rumors, insults, lies, and your first instinct to respond, to defend, to scream the truth into the void. But pause. Why do you feel the need to explain yourself? Is it justice or is it pride? Machiavelli understood something deeper. When you defend yourself, you validate the attack. You enter their arena, and in that arena, truth doesn't win. Perception does. The more you explain, the more guilty you look. The more you chase fairness, the more desperate you seem, even when you're right. Because the world isn't watching facts. They're watching your body, your tone, your composure. Emotion is not power. Emotion is bait. And most people take it. But the truly powerful, they don't react. They don't correct. They don't justify. They stay calm. They stay still. And in that stillness, they shift the entire frame. You let the attacker scream. You don't flinch. You don't move. Suddenly, the spotlight leaves your name and shines on theirs. Why so emotional? Why so loud? Why is he calm? And they're not. That's when the crowd starts asking questions. Not about you, but about them. This is the reversal. You don't need to win the argument. You just need to control the frame. Let them dig. Let them rant. Let them spiral. You give them nothing. Not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous. Every time they swing, and you stay silent, you create contrast. And contrast creates doubt. They tried to make you look guilty, but now they look unstable. They tried to steal your frame, but ended up exposing their own. Ask yourself, why do they want your reaction so badly? What happens if you never give it to them? That silence becomes a mirror. They see themselves, and they don't like what's reflected. You didn't destroy them. They destroyed their own credibility while trying to take yours. This isn't avoidance. This is strategy. Don't defend. Don't explain. Just exist with poise. Because in a world addicted to noise, stillness is power, and silence is lethal. They insult you. In public, loud, calculated. Everyone's watching, waiting for your reaction. But you don't speak. You don't flinch. You don't even blink. You just look at them. Still, calm, unbothered. What does that silence say? That their words didn't land. That their status didn't shake you. That they are not worth disturbing your peace. And the crowd feels it. They expected fireworks. You gave them stone. And in that silence, the attacker starts to unravel. The louder they scream, the more foolish they look. The calmer you stay, the more powerful you appear. This isn't passivity. This is dominance. Stillness is not weakness. It's precision. Imagine this. They throw everything at you. Insults, lies, cheap shots. You say nothing. Each second that passes, they get louder, angrier, more unstable. And you just breathe. Why does this work? Because people trust control, not volume. They don't know your thoughts. They can't read your face. They feel the tension rising. But it's not yours. It's theirs. You don't just hold the frame. You become it. Their attacks fall into silence. That silence becomes a mirror. And what they see is their own desperation. Stillness is contrast. And contrast is lethal. They want you to react, because then it's a fight. A spectacle. A story. But you don't give them one. You give them stillness. You give them space to self-destruct. Ask yourself, what's more humiliating than being ignored while trying to provoke? What's more terrifying than a man who doesn't move? Because he doesn't need to. That's the essence of strategy. You let them write the script. You let them perform. Then you step over the ashes, without ever raising your voice. Power isn't always seen in what you do. Sometimes, it's in what you don't do. Let them burn themselves trying to ignite you. Let them scream into silence. Because when you stand still, you don't just survive the attack. You expose it. Some people don't want peace. They want your reaction. They crave relevance, even if it comes wrapped in conflict. But you don't give them war. You give them absence. No explosion. No grand exit. Just quiet subtraction. What happens when you remove your energy without a scene? You stop replying. Stop defending. Stop giving them space in your mind. Suddenly, they're screaming into a void. Still talking about you. Still twisting the narrative. Still trying to get a rise out of someone who's no longer there. And the audience, they feel the shift. They ask, why is he still shouting? Why is the other man so calm? That's when the story starts to break. Because your silence isn't avoidance. It's control. Every time you withhold attention, you take oxygen from their fire. They wanted noise. You gave them quiet. Now they suffocate in it. This is subtraction, not absence of presence. But absence of power, they no longer affect your direction. They're not in your orbit, not in your next move, not in your future. And that emptiness, it's devastating. The most brutal defeat isn't public shaming. It's becoming irrelevant in the story you tried to dominate. You didn't argue. You didn't announce the end. You just stopped including them. No closure. No warning. Just gone. Comment for reflection. Have you ever watched someone destroy themselves trying to matter to someone who already moved on? Ask yourself, how many of your enemies are just echoes, kept alive by your attention? And what happens when you stop feeding them? Let them rant. Let them spiral. You move forward. With focus. Not fury. With presence. Not protest. They don't deserve a goodbye. They deserve to be forgotten. This is not cruelty. This is precision. They wanted a reaction. You gave them something far worse. Silence. And now they collapse. Not because you buried them, but because you never looked back. The world doesn't run on truth. It runs on perception. You could be right, pure, innocent. But if they control the narrative, you lose. Machiavelli didn't care who was innocent. He cared who shaped the frame. Because once the frame is set, truth becomes optional. The audience stops looking for facts. They follow the story. So ask yourself, are you living your story or someone else's script? Most people fall into the trap. They explain, clarify, defend, but every explanation confirms the frame they're trying to build around you. They say you're unstable, You respond emotionally. They say you're fake. You try to prove your intentions. In both cases, you lose. Not because it's true, but because you played by their rules. That's how perception traps you. But here's the strategy. You don't fight the frame. You replace it. Let your actions contradict their version of you. Let your presence rewrite the room. Without one word, he who frames first shapes the battlefield. He who speaks second must change the game. You walk in, calm, clear, focused. You speak less, but with more weight. You move slower, but with more intention, and the room notices. Suddenly, what was said about you doesn't match what they see. The story cracks. The attacker looks insecure. You look composed. Ask your audience, have you ever entered a room where people doubted you and walked out with their respect? What shifted? The facts or their perception? This is why silence is power, because it lets your presence speak louder than their words. You become the contradiction, not by debating, but by being unshakable in front of accusation. You don't react. You don't explain. You let results speak. You let your stillness say, this narrative isn't mine, and I refuse to play the lead. That's how you win the war of perception. Not with argument, but with alignment. Who you are must crush who they say you are. And when it does, the crowd doesn't just ignore the lie. They start doubting the liar. Let them twist. Let them whisper. You focus on one thing, holding the frame. Because in Machiavellian warfare, the frame is the kingdom. And if you own the frame, you don't need to fight. The world starts fighting for you. The arrogant don't insult you. They ignore you, talk over you, look through you, because they think you'll never be a threat. That is their blind spot. They believe your silence means submission, that your calm means weakness, that your delay means defeat. But Machiavelli understood. The most dangerous threat is the one that doesn't announce itself. You don't confront arrogance. You outgrow it. While they posture, you build. While they gloat, you sharpen. You don't demand the throne. You construct your own. And one day, without warning, you walk into the room, and the room shifts. People who once ignored you, pause, turn, listen. Suddenly, you carry gravity, and they feel the loss, not of status, but of dominance. Because now, you've become what they feared. Undeniable. You didn't fight for their attention. You never needed their praise. You let your growth speak louder than their pride. Ask yourself, what's more humiliating for the arrogant? Being attacked or being outclassed without ever being mentioned? This is the most Machiavellian strike. You don't name them. You don't react to them. You don't even remind them that you've arrived. You just arrive, with more weight than they ever imagined. The arrogant fear competition, but what they truly fear is irrelevance. And now, they're watching a storm they didn't expect. A name they once dismissed is now the name being whispered in admiration. They thought you were beneath them. You were just behind them, becoming. And the moment you rise, without dragging them down, they collapse. Not from your success, but from their own miscalculation, because pride only survives in a vacuum. When someone enters that space with substance, the illusion shatters. No argument, no spectacle, just a quiet dethroning. Ask your viewers, have you ever been dismissed by someone who didn't know what you were becoming? And what did it feel like when they had to face your arrival? That is the collapse. Not from attack, but from silence wrapped in excellence. Never gloat, never mock, just rise, and let them drown in the one realization they can't handle. You were never beneath them. You were just out of sight. Until now, not all enemies attack. Some just imitate. They watch you, mimic your tone, repeat your ideas, follow your path, not to learn, but to replace. They don't want to be great. They want to be you. But here's the secret Machiavelli knew. Imitation isn't power. It's confession. They reveal what they lack. Identity, vision, originality. And when you react, you legitimize the copy. You validate their effort. You give them fuel. But when you stay focused, they can't keep up. Because you're not repeating yourself. You're evolving. By the time they copy your last move, you're already playing a new game. They try to be you, but they're always one step behind. Ask your audience, have you ever seen someone try to wear your skin, but collapse under your weight? This is the beauty of quiet evolution. You never confront. You just rise out of reach. No announcement, no rivalry, just velocity. They imitate. You accelerate. They want relevance. You want legacy. The original doesn't need to attack the copy. It just needs to move fast enough to become untouchable. And slowly, the crowd sees it. They compare. They notice. One voice sounds hollow. The other, heavy. One is noise. The other, presence. The replica fades. You didn't argue. You didn't defend. You didn't need to. Because power doesn't chase validation. It redefines the standard. So what's the move? You vanish into your next chapter, into your next level, into a realm they cannot follow. Because you don't compete with shadows. You outgrow the light they try to stand in. Comment prompt? Have you ever felt copied? What did you do? Confront or evolve? Let them wear your jacket. Let them quote your words. They'll never carry your soul. They'll never hold your weight. That's the Machiavellian strike. No confrontation. No reaction. Just quiet separation. Through growth. Not all enemies attack in daylight. Some whisper in the dark. They smile to your face. While planting seeds behind your back, they don't scream. They erode. Their jealousy wears a mask of concern. They question your motives, your character, your success. Never openly. Always in suggestion. Always in shadows. And you want to fix it. Defend yourself. Set the record straight. But Machiavelli would warn you. Every defense gives the rumor oxygen. Every explanation makes the lie look real. The more you react, the more desperate you seem. So what do? You don't fight the whisper. You make it irrelevant. You walk into the same room where your name was doubted and dominate with composure, with presence, with excellence. You let your reputation speak louder than their accusations. Because here's the truth. When the man doesn't match the storyteller becomes the liar. You don't call them out. You don't mention their name. You don't even let them know you noticed. You just shine, right in front of their audience. Every word they speak begins to collapse under the weight of your performance. The room shifts. People wonder, why are they so focused on someone who's never reacted? Why do their words feel bitter, while yours feel solid? And just like that, the whisper becomes noise. The liar becomes visible. The audience begins to turn. Not because you exposed them, but because you outgrew their darkness. Ask your viewers, have you ever defeated a rumor just by staying solid long enough? That's the Machiavellian play. You don't chase ghosts. You bring light. And light kills whispers. This isn't passivity. It's mastery. You don't clear your name. You live it. You become so consistent that the accusation dies. In contrast, let them talk. Let them plant seeds. You plant results. And when the truth blooms, you won't need to say a word. They tried everything. Insults, whispers, imitation, dismissal, but nothing worked. Because you gave them what they could never survive. Indifference. You didn't fight. You didn't retaliate. You didn't even speak. You just moved on. No apology, no announcement, no dramatic exit. You simply stopped including them. And in that quiet subtraction, they felt something louder than rage. Absence. Machiavelli knew. Power isn't always what you give. It's what you take away. Your energy, your attention, your validation. All gone. They wanted relevance. You gave them silence. They scream. They spiral. They try harder to be seen. But the more they shout, the smaller they look. You are no longer in their world. And that is the deepest cut. Because most enemies don't want to defeat you. They want to orbit you, to feed off your reaction, to matter through your resistance. But when you remove your presence, you remove their oxygen. Some enemies don't die from confrontation. They rot from being forgotten. You don't send a message. You become the message. Every step forward, every room you elevate into, makes them less real. Now they are not your rival, not even your memory. They are a ghost, trapped in the story you stopped telling. Ask the audience. Have you ever outgrown someone so completely they started to look imaginary? This is the final move. Not hatred, not revenge, not victory, absence. And here's the paradox. They tried to destroy you, but you survived so quietly. They now wonder if the war ever happened at all. You don't gloat. You don't look back. You rise so far that their name doesn't echo in your world anymore. This is power. Not loud, not aggressive, but final. Because when destruction is complete, it doesn't look like chaos. It looks like silence. Let them rot in the prison they built from obsession. While you disappear into a life so elevated, they begin to doubt they were ever part of your story at all.